think that there's such a thing as financial abuse, and men seem a lot of time, because they spend, that a woman has to be under them or owes them something.
I think that's when it gets toxic.
Me personally, I love to take care of my partner. I love that feeling that I give them, that they're taken care of when they're with me. And that's when it's with friends, anybody. If you're with me, I got you.
Like, I guess what I'm hearing from you, Andre, is that there's like a lot of pressure to inhabit the masculine side of the social expectation, and yet you might not get the benefit that you would have expected generations ago, and that puts you in a weird position.
Yeah, well, we live in a city where there's 8 million people, and you know, a lot of these girls, especially if you're really attractive, guys are hitting on them all day, so they feel like celebrities.
A lot of the stereotypes of why women should not be president are so played out. And granted, I love a good stereotype, especially if it gets me out of being the driver for it. But I just feel like the excuses for why women shouldn't be president are so played out. Like, they feel like, oh, women talk too much. Like, you know, dude, anytime a man's ever said that a woman talks too much, she told him no. Or they say, like, women are too emotional. Anytime a woman has ever been called too emotional, she told a man, stop.
If I dance a certain way, or if I wear my hair a certain way, if I dress a certain way, they go, real men don't do that. Like, where's the safe place to be for men now? You know what I mean? And it's kind of disturbing.
You know, I was what you would call a toxic masculine male growing up. And I had good men that sewed into me. You know, they gave me good advice. But I never found manhood or never understood my place as a man until one day I humbled myself and I gave my life to the Lord Jesus Christ.
Before making the Red Pill movie, I was a feminist of about 10 years. And I thought I was well-versed on gender equality issues. But it wasn't until I met men's rights activists that I finally started to consider the other side of the gender equality equation.
It's very fun and all, but I'm going slow in this hookup culture now, because I've noticed that although we're more likely to hook up on the first date, these hookups are turning into things that are a little bit more physical than for my liking. Like, I'm a kick it out, okay? But it's a little bit different. You have a couple margaritas, you come back to my place, and there's a lot of slapping, spitting, choking, pulling, grabbing, things like that. I'm going on these hinge dates, I'm ending up in cage fights. Is this happening to people?
So if I'm dating the head of Sephora and I gold dig him, I'm not using him for his money, I'm using him for my money. That is my money. I'm just trying to get that shit back. I feel like you gold digged me first. Bronzer should not be $90. When guys complain about gold diggers, it's tricky because to us the solution is so obvious.
Life expectancy, child custody, child support, false rape allegations, criminal court bias, misandry, failure to launch, boys falling behind in education, homelessness, veterans issues, infant male genital mutilation, lack of parental choice once a child is conceived, lack of resources for male victims of domestic violence. So many issues are heartbreaking. If you are the victim, or you love someone who is the victim of any one of these issues, these are men's issues, and most people can't name one because they think, well, men have all the rights, they have all the power and privilege.
The thing that I see is a lot of deconstructing generational trauma. The be a man, boys don't cry, you know, this, that, and the other thing. And I think that's actually one of the reasons why we see it as a crisis, because we're actually trying to redefine what it means to be a man, and none of us have any idea because we're just out here trying to be whoever we are.
That's right. I think that historically, being a man was rooted in patriarchy and misogyny. And now we realize how harmful that has been over the years. And so we don't really know how to define where we're supposed to be. And I think the reason that they're saying it's a crisis is because the box has gotten so small for just being, say, straight, just being a hetero, right? Because if you do anything, women judge you.
Given how sport is currently structured, should we include trans women and intersex women in women's sport? And the answer to that is a clear yes. If you want to say, should we revisit how we structure all of sport, I would say, yeah, we should do that. But if your only reason for doing that is because you can't just accept trans women or women, that's a problem I got.
think that it's only due to nurture, those gender norms that we follow.
Male and female matters. God gives you one of those identities, you take on that role. And now you're responsible for not or for fulfilling that role. There's a masculine crisis because men are not taking responsibilities for the God-given roles that they have in society. And so when you take away the need to say, God made you this or God made you this, now you don't have to take responsibility for not fulfilling what you were called to do.
When you do that, you also take away other things that somebody else may do. If I have a woman or a partner that wants to take on certain roles and I say, hey, those are my roles that God gave me in society, now I'm suppressing that person.
Like, first dates are like nightmares. It's like, I'm like, what do you want? Are you gonna be interesting during the dinner? And then when you walk home, are you gonna drop me off? And it's like, I'm to the point where I'm like, I'm so tired of like paying $150 for a first date, and then you just ghost me. And the next week, I'm like hurt for cash. I'm like, I could have really used that $150. Like, why did I have to? You know what I'm saying?
Like, the trade-off of like going on a date and as the man being like, oh, this sucks, I have to pay, or as the woman being like, oh, this sucks, I might get murdered, is like a pretty big, imbalance.
On a first date, should the man, or whoever identifies as the man on the date, pick up the check?
There is a toxic side to both genders.
Well, I think anybody can be narcissistic, but I think that it's like weird to randomly attribute that to like women in New York because they're being complimented all day.
There's a term, it's called absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, but that is, when we're talking about masculinity, that's what we've had. We've typically had that. We can do whatever we want, and we do it because we squeeze, we corrupt, we take. Historically, you take over things, places that you don't like, and you rape the women, and you take the gold, and you do what you want because you have that power. Now when we see women have that power, we're like, whoa, she's literally just getting a taste of the power that men have had for centuries.
Men's rights activists would say to me, men are far more likely to lose their child in a custody battle. And I would counter, well, because women are unfairly expected to be the caretaker, it's discrimination against women that women get custody more often. Out of that. Second example, an MRA would say to me, men are roughly 78% of all suicides throughout the world. And I would counter with, but women attempt suicide more often.
It's very ironic to me when guys complain about gold diggers, because you were the original gold diggers, right? Your great-great-grandfathers got a bunch of shovels and started digging up actual gold before women were allowed to leave the house. I would love to dig for gold the old-fashioned way and get like a pickaxe, like a salad strainer, and go get my own gold, but you guys took it all, and you refused to share. So now we're gonna have to do this the hard way and be in a bad relationship.
The trade-off of like going on a date and as the man being like, oh, this sucks, I have to pay, or as the woman being like, oh, this sucks, I might get murdered, is like a pretty big, imbalance.
On a first date, should the man, or whoever identifies as the man on the date, pick up the check? Show of hands, who thinks yes?
Yeah, should is a weird.
It all boils down to, do you actually think that trans women and intersex women are real women and are really female or not? And if you do, it's very simple. Just stop policing who counts as a real woman, because this has had history of racism built into it over the years.
Is she too woman-womany for you? Absolutely not. Something's awry. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you want trans women, you want a little bit of fucking... You don't want to argue. You want to be like, what's up then? Like, I said, split the fucking bill. Wait, you still got to pay for shit and everything? You bought the drinks, you paid for the tickets.
I don't think I'm a cyborg, so like this idea that like, oh, you're not a biological woman. Well, I am a woman, that's a fact. I am female, so all my identity records, my racing license, my medical records all say female, right? And I'm pretty sure I need biological stuff, so I'm a biological female as well.
Well, after years of researching and fact-checking what the men's rights activists were telling me, There is no denying that there are many human rights issues that uniquely or disproportionately affect men. Maternity fraud uniquely affects men. The United States Selective Service, in the case of a draft, still uniquely affects men. Workplace deaths, disproportionately men. War deaths, overwhelmingly men.
I had good men that sewed into me, they gave me good advice, but I never found manhood or never understood my place as a man until one day I humbled myself and I gave my life to the Lord Jesus Christ. And I'm telling you right now, walking with God changed my life forever.
Can you define toxic masculinity?
I would say toxic masculinity is like what he was just saying, where you're using that leadership role or that aggressive nature in a harmful way to harm other people to get your way. So the biblical structure for manhood is very humble. It's self-sacrifice. It's not self-motivated, but it is motivated by principle and standing on what's right.